Most people believe that when memory starts slipping after 60, it is simply the price of getting older, that the brain wears out the way knees and eyes do, and there is nothing to be done but accept it. I want to tell you tonight, as gently and as firmly as I can, that this belief is costing people their minds. Because for a surprising number of older adults, the forgetfulness, the foggy afternoons, the names that sit on the tip of the tongue and refuse to come, the real cause is not the calendar. It is sitting on the bathroom shelf, in a bottle they were promised was harmless. And the most unsettling part is that no single pill is usually the villain. It is the quiet way several of them stack on top of one another, all pulling at the same thread inside the brain, while nobody adds up the total. If you have watched someone you love start to lose the thread, forgetting an appointment they made an hour ago, asking the same question twice in a conversation, getting briefly lost on a road they have driven for 30 years, you have probably heard everyone around them say the same thing. Well, that's just age. And maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it is a chemistry problem with a name, and a cause you can actually do something about. That is what I want to walk you through, calmly and clearly, over the next few minutes. Here's the picture in plain terms. Your brain runs on a messenger chemical called acetylcholine. Think of it as the ink your brain uses to write down a new memory and to stay sharp and alert through the day. As we age, the brain naturally makes less of this ink, so it leans on every drop it has left. Now imagine taking a medication whose entire job, as a side effect, is to soak up that ink. On a 30-year-old brain swimming in the stuff, you might barely notice. On a 70-year-old brain already running low, the same drug can land like a hammer. Drugs that do this are called anticholinergics, and what most people never realize is how many ordinary, everyday medications quietly belong to that family. So tonight, I am going to count down 7 of the medications most often tied to memory trouble in older adults, from the ones people overlook entirely up to the #1 cause, which is not a single drug at all, but a pattern that almost nobody is warned about. And I want you to pay special attention to #2, because it is handed to seniors for something that sounds completely harmless, yet it slips into the brain more easily than almost anything else on this list. Before we begin, do me a favor and tell me in the comments how old you are and how many different medications you take each day. I read them, and honestly, the answers shape what I cover next. Let's start. #7 is the one sitting in nearly every medicine cabinet in this country, and most people would never suspect it because you do not even need a prescription to buy it. #7 is diphenhydramine. You know it far better by its drugstore name, Benadryl. It is the little pill people reach for to fall asleep, to quiet an allergy, or to take the edge off a cold. It costs a few dollars, it sits on an open shelf, and because no doctor is needed to buy it, people assume it must be gentle. Inside the aging brain, it is doing something else entirely. Benadryl is one of the strongest everyday anticholinergics there is. It soaks up that memory ink we just talked about. The structure that takes the hit first is the hippocampus, the small seahorse-shaped region where new memories are formed before they are filed away for keeping. And the research here is not soft or hand-wavy. Large, long-term studies following older adults have consistently found that the more anticholinergic medication a person uses over the years, the higher their risk of developing dementia climbs, with the heaviest, longest users carrying a clearly elevated risk compared with people who stayed off these drugs. In one of the most carefully designed studies of its kind, the effect held up even after researchers deliberately set aside the most recent year of use to rule out the possibility that early dementia was simply driving the prescriptions. So here is what to do, and it is simple. Read the label on anything you take to help you sleep, and on anything marked PM, nighttime, or nighttime allergy relief, because those products are very often just Benadryl wearing a friendlier costume. If you need an allergy medication, newer ones such as loratadine, sold as Claritin, barely cross into the brain at all, and are far kinder to your memory over the long haul. Never stop a medication on your own. Bring it to your doctor. But please stop assuming that over the counter means safe for your brain. That is number 7. Number 6 is one your stomach loves and your brain may quietly pay for, though I want to be especially honest with you about this one because the science here is genuinely still being argued. Number 6 is the proton pump inhibitors, the big acid blockers. The familiar names are omeprazole, sold as Prilosec, and esomeprazole, sold as Nexium. They shut down acid production in the stomach, and they get handed out for heartburn and reflux, often for years, because the moment someone stops, the burning comes roaring back, so the drug feels indispensable. Now here is the concern, and here is the honesty. Your stomach needs acid to pull certain nutrients out of your food. Chief among them, vitamin B12, which protects the wiring of your nerves and brain. Turn the acid down far enough, long enough, and some people's B12 can quietly drop, and low B12 can produce confusion and memory slips that look unsettlingly like early Alzheimer's. Several years ago, a large study of more than 70,000 people aged 75 and older found that regular users of these acid blockers had a meaningfully higher rate of dementia than non-users. That study made headlines and frightened a lot of people. But here is what most channels will never tell you. Newer and more rigorous research has muddied that picture considerably. Several large, higher quality studies have found no clear link at all, and the B12 mechanism, while real in principle, has not held up cleanly in every population. So I am not going to stand here and tell you these drugs cause dementia, because the honest answer is that we do not know that. What I will tell you is this. Taking a powerful acid blocker every single day for years, out of pure habit, is worth questioning regardless, because there are other well-documented downsides. Many people can step down to a gentler class called H2 blockers, such as famotidine, sold as Pepcid. The goal is simply the lowest dose for the shortest time that controls your symptoms, not a pill you take forever because no one ever told you to stop. That is number 6. Quick pause, because we are about to get to the ones that worry me most. If this is helping you connect the dots, take 1 second and tap that like button. It genuinely helps this reach more seniors who have never heard any of this. And while you are there, tell me down in the comments how many prescriptions you are taking right now. I read every single one. Alright, back to the countdown. Number 5 might be the most surprising one on this list, because it is one of the most prescribed medicines on Earth, and here too, I owe you the full and honest picture. Number 5 is the statins, simvastatin and atorvastatin, sold as Zocor and Lipitor. After 60, a huge share of adults take one, and for good reason. Statins lower cholesterol and meaningfully reduce the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Let me be completely clear before I say anything else. This is not a case against statins, and for many people, they are genuinely protective and worth staying on. Here is the part that gets left out. Your brain is roughly 60% fat, and it uses cholesterol to build the insulation around its nerve fibers. The fat-soluble statins, the ones that cross more easily into brain tissue, are the ones occasionally linked to a foggy, slowed-down feeling. And the FDA does formally acknowledge that some people report memory complaints, forgetfulness, or confusion on statins. But, and this is the honest part, the largest and best designed studies in older adults have not found that statins, as a group, cause dementia. Some research even suggests they may slightly lower the risk. The most accurate way to say it is this. A small number of people seem to experience a reversible brain fog on certain statins, and that fog typically lifts when the dose is lowered or the statin is switched. So if you have been on a statin for years and you have noticed new fog or forgetfulness creeping in, that is absolutely worth raising with your doctor. There are alternatives like pravastatin and rosuvastatin that stay out of brain tissue more. But this is never a reason to quietly quit, on your own, a medication that may be protecting your heart. Get the plan right with your doctor. Never alone. That is number 5. Number 4 is prescribed for a problem most people would rather not discuss out loud. And unlike the last two, The concern here is solid and consistent. Number 4 is the older bladder medications, and the one to know by name is oxybutynin, sold as Ditropan. It is given to seniors who struggle with a sudden, urgent need to reach the bathroom, an overactive bladder that can reshape an entire day. The relief is real, and so is the dignity it restores. But oxybutynin works by blocking acetylcholine, that same memory ink, and this particular drug slips across into the brain with unusual ease, parking itself right where memories are made. Recent large studies looking specifically at bladder anticholinergics have found that oxybutynin and a couple of its older cousins carry one of the clearer dementia signals among these drugs, especially with long-term use. And here is what troubles me most. Almost no one taking it is ever warned. They are told a pill will calm the bladder. Nobody mentions it might be dimming the mind at the same time. So when the fog arrives, it gets blamed on age and never traced back to the prescription. If you take oxybutynin and you have noticed your memory slipping, take that seriously, because you do not have to choose between your bladder and your brain. Newer medications such as mirabegron, sold as Mirbatrique, work through a completely different pathway and do not touch acetylcholine at all. And for most older adults, they offer the same control, with far less risk to thinking. Bring it up at your next visit. That is number 4. Number 3 is a single medication prescribed for 3 different problems, and it carries one of the heaviest hidden brain burdens on this entire list. Number 3 is amitriptyline, sold as Elavil. It is an older antidepressant still widely prescribed today for nerve pain, for sleep trouble, even to prevent migraines. That very versatility is why it spread so far. It looks like a medication that can do everything. But beneath the surface, it is one of the most powerful anticholinergics still in common use. It blocks acetylcholine so strongly that with long-term use, memory trouble stops being a rare side effect and starts to look almost expected. The large, careful studies that tracked anticholinergic use over a decade placed drugs like amitriptyline among the heaviest contributors to that rising dementia risk, and it does not even take a high dose. A small nightly tablet, taken faithfully for years, can quietly erode focus and recall, and the person almost always assumes it is just age. If you or someone you love takes amitriptyline, that is a conversation worth having soon. For nerve pain, options like duloxetine or gabapentin may give similar relief without the same brain burden. For sleep, melatonin or a very low dose of doxepin are gentler on this pathway. And for mood, newer antidepressants such as sertraline or escitalopram are generally far kinder to the long-term health of the brain. That is number 3. Number 2 is the one I asked you to watch for because it is prescribed to millions for something that sounds completely harmless, and it is the one antidepressant in its family that breaks the rules. Number 2 is paroxetine, sold as Paxil. It belongs to the SSRIs, the modern family used for depression and anxiety, and on the surface it looks like a gentle, contemporary choice. But here is the detail that is almost never discussed. Paroxetine is the one SSRI with strong anticholinergic activity. That single trait sets it apart from its cousins, sertraline and escitalopram, because it tugs at the very same memory chemical as every other drug on this list. Now I want to be precise because precision matters here. The evidence that paroxetine specifically causes dementia is not airtight. At least one careful study found no clear dementia difference versus other SSRIs. So why is it number 2? Because the experts who write the safety guidelines have already made the call for us. The American Geriatric Society places paroxetine on what is known as the Beers List, a formal catalog of medications considered potentially inappropriate for older adults, precisely because of this anticholinergic burden and the cognitive concerns that come with it. When the people whose entire job is senior safety flag a drug for exactly this reason, that is worth listening to. The good news is simple. Paroxetine is generally a medication worth avoiding in older adults when alternatives exist. If you take it, ask your doctor about switching to a gentler SSRI, like sertraline or escitalopram, which do not carry the same concern. That is number 2. And now we arrive at number 1, which, as I promised, is not a single medication at all. Number 1 is anticholinergic burden, the quiet, compounding total of several of these drugs taken together while nobody adds up the sum. You were probably expecting one final villain, one worst pill. The truth is more subtle and, in a way, more hopeful. Picture a very ordinary situation. A senior takes Benadryl every night to sleep, oxybutynin every day for the bladder, and amitriptyline for nerve pain. On its own, each one might cause only a small, barely noticeable effect. But together, they stack. 3 drugs all soaking up the same memory ink at the same time, and the burden on the brain climbs fast, while every individual prescriber sees only their own piece. The largest studies on this stacking effect have found that older adults carrying the highest total anticholinergic burden face a substantially elevated dementia risk over the following years. And the overwhelming majority of them had no idea any of their medications belonged to this family. No one had ever explained it. Here is the part that made me want to make this video. And it is genuinely hopeful. This kind of medication-driven fog is often reversible when it is caught early. Reduce the burden, and many people regain clarity, energy, and memory within weeks to months. The brain is far more resilient than people fear, but only once the source of harm is lifted. And the solution does not require a miracle. It requires a careful medication review. Sit down with your doctor or pharmacist and go through every prescription, every over-the-counter product, and every supplement you take. Ask one direct question. What is the total anticholinergic burden of everything I am on? There are simple scoring tools they can use to answer that. Then, under medical supervision, unnecessary drugs can be reduced and safer alternatives swapped in, and the brain can be given the chance to recover. This is very likely the most preventable threat to the aging brain on this whole list, and that is exactly why it sits at number 1. So let me bring it all together. We counted down 7: Benadryl, the acid blockers, statins, oxybutynin, amitriptyline, paroxetine, and the real number 1, the hidden burden of stacking them. Please do not walk away from this video and start stopping pills on your own, because some of these are genuinely dangerous to quit abruptly, and others may be protecting your heart. That is the opposite of what I want. Pick 1 or 2 of these, write them down, and take this list to your next appointment as the start of one calm, careful conversation. Consistency and one good medication review will do far more for you than panic ever will. Now I want to hear from you. Of the medications we covered tonight, which ones are sitting in your cabinet right now? And have you noticed new fog or forgetfulness after starting something new? Tell me in the comments, and tell me you will ask for a medication review this week. Your answer might be the very thing that helps the next person who reads it. And before you go, your medicine cabinet is one place your body hides its warnings, but it is not the only one. In the next video, I will show you 4 signs in your fingernails that can hint at trouble with your kidneys, your blood, and your nervous system. Small things most people never think to check. I will see you there. Until then, stay sharp and take good care of that remarkable brain of yours.